how do you know how high you are when you're in the woods? You look at the other trees and you realize, oh, I'm above those trees, which means I'm above that area, but I'm also below these. I think you have to look at your surroundings. You have to compare to those around you who are at a similar space and time.
But you also have to understand what's causing the success. So if you had a bunch of success in a certain arena, but you have no clue why or no clue how, you're not able to double down on it. That's the fourth blind spot. When you do get results, you don't know what made the biggest difference, so you can't double down on it.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, weekly Next Level University live podcast for week number 92. We are going to be talking about recognizing your blind spots. One of the benefits of having a business partner and a intimate partner who are both so focused on growth is I get reminded often of my blind spots, especially when I ask for them. And I do believe at the end of the day, we all have them. When you can first illuminate them and second conquer them, you will be able to get to a much further level in your life. It's difficult, it's challenging. Sometimes they're mirrors you don't want to see, but sometimes the ones you don't want to see are the most necessary.
So this is how I want to open this up, Kev. Have you ever been driving on the highway, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm there.
And you're going to go switch lanes.
I'm there.
And then all of a sudden, you look to your right and you're like, oh my God, I didn't see that person. And then you like swerve. That was your blind spot. Mm-hmm.
Well done.
Mm-hmm. So thanks, brother. So anyone who's ever had that experience, it can feel a lot like that. It can feel a lot like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't know that about myself, or I didn't realize that sooner. And the interesting part about this live podcast in particular is the more blind spots you recognize, the more painful it will be at first, but the more that you'll grow. We all have heard no pain, no gain. We've all heard you cannot grow without challenge. That's what these blind spots are. And so Kevin and I each have 5 that we're going to articulate to you based on all the people we've coached, all the people we've interviewed. We've noticed common blind spots that human beings have, and we're going to basically give them to you here today.
So Alan and I did a live event one time, and we met somebody at this live event, and I think she sent us an email. And she said, hey, I would absolutely love to hop on the phone with you guys and help you with your business. And we get a lot of these now, and we tend to say no to these because, number one, I think we're doing a good job, and we've had a lot of mentorship, and we've realized that we just have to keep building what we're building. And that's the main focus right now. But we said, yeah, okay, cool, let's do it. And this person was a marketer. And Alan and I, going into the call, we're thinking, oh, I think this person probably wants to start a podcast. They saw us speak. They know we're a podcaster. They probably want to start a podcast to help their marketing company out. Like, awesome. So we did a bunch of research. We couldn't find any social media for this person. The website wasn't good. The online footprint just wasn't very good. And when we got on the Zoom, this person tried to sell us on marketing. They tried to sell us. They said, hey, we can help you with this. And Alan and I remember on the call, we were very honest but kind. We said, we looked you up. We couldn't find you. We don't understand. Like, we didn't realize you were trying to help us with marketing. We couldn't find you when we were searching for you, which means you probably aren't a good fit to help us with our marketing. So number one, a blind spot that a lot of people need to hear, and Alan and I needed to hear in the very beginning of this journey, one of two things. You're either not that good yet, or the polar opposite, you're way better than you think. If you lack self-confidence, you might be way better than you think. If you are higher on the drive to 5, you might not be as good as you think. I can think of a bunch of podcasts that I've been on where I'm talking to them after in the post-amble, and they say, yeah, I'm just not getting a lot of listens, or I've gotten a lot of negative reviews lately, and you're just not that good yet. Number one, that's okay. It's okay not to be good in the beginning. So if you recognize that blind spot, then you can try to improve that. And another time I see this a lot is people will have a podcast, and I'm sure, Alan, this probably crosses over to you as well, but people will have a podcast and they'll say, yeah, I can't make any money. I'm not getting any listens. I don't know how to get clients. And the blind spot that they're not realizing is they haven't studied sales, they haven't studied persuasion, they haven't studied influence, and they don't understand how to turn a podcast into a business. So number one, you're either not good enough yet, like that marketer who just wasn't good enough to help us and didn't realize it, or potentially you're way better than you realize and you're waiting too long to start the thing that you want to start. Maybe you should have already started the podcast. Maybe you should have already started coaching. Maybe you should have already started a business, whatever it may be. So you have to check in with that. Now, throughout this entire live, Alan and I might not land on one of your exact blind spots, but what I do want is for you to look in that proverbial mirror, ask somebody close to you. I have a story about that I'll connect in later, but we might not land on your actual blind spot, but do yourself a favor and reflect after or during listening to this and really check in with, okay, does that resonate with me? Is that something that applies to me where I am in my life right now?
Kev, how does someone know whether or not they think they're not good enough and they're actually better than they think they are, or they're actually worse than they think they are?
It's hard. I think you have to look back at the data that you have, particularly early. I think it's very hard to pinpoint where you are in the grand scheme of things. I know people say not to compare. I think you have to. I really, especially early on, Alan and I were talking about this earlier. I said, in order to understand where you fit in the grand scheme of things, you need to know where the ceiling is and where the floor is. And if you're beginning in your journey and you're thinking to yourself, I feel like I'm a stronger interviewer than that person. Okay, what's the data? What are you basing that off of? Something you listen to and you realize, oh, I would have gone here. I think you have to check your surroundings. I really do. How do you know how high you are when you're in the woods? You look at the other trees and you realize, oh, I'm above those trees, which means I'm above that area, but I'm also below these. I think you have to look at your surroundings. Don't tie your self-worth to the comparison, but I think you have to compare to those around you who are at a similar space and time.
Fire, I couldn't agree more. I think that the whole never compare yourself, it doesn't allow you to understand. For anyone who took statistics, there's something called a bell curve. And you have to understand where you fall on the bell curve in order to understand. So, for example, to bring this back to what Kevin said, when Kevin and I first started podcasting, we were not good podcasters compared to us now. But that doesn't mean we weren't good podcasters for brand new podcasters. See, it all depends on what you're comparing to, right? If you're only looking at Target, Walmart, and Kmart, Walmart is a good investment. If you're looking at Target, Walmart, Kmart, and Amazon, Walmart probably isn't as good of an investment because Amazon is a better one. It's really important to, and again, that's a blanket statement, but it's really important to understand when you're making decisions and when you're comparing, you have to look at the other things in order to understand where you fall. Another example of this is you don't always know what it's like to live in a $200,000 home until you've also lived in a $100,000 home and you've also lived in a $1 million home. You don't really know the difference until you've walked into all those different homes. And for those of you out there who have ever house shopped, this is like a thing. You go and you view a bunch of homes, you look at all the different rooms and the kitchen and the bathrooms, and you look at the different price ranges. There is a drastic difference in the quality of home based on $600,000 versus $400,000 versus $200,000. The difference is drastic. And you don't realize that until you visit a bunch of different homes and a bunch of different neighborhoods, and you realize, wow, this is a big difference. So you can't fully understand the value of one thing until you look at it from that holistic perspective. The first one, speaking of value, the first one that I have written down here is you have low self-worth and you don't know how to build it. Again, this is recognizing your blind spots. I've found this so many times, and I've been guilty of this as well. You have low self-worth and you don't know how to build it. Whenever I do my biweekly coaching, before every call, I've said this before, I crunch the last 14 days of their peak performance tracking. So typically it's a dozen habits, 4 under health, 4 under wealth, 4 under love. For our long-term listeners, you know this. And before the call, I crunch the data. And I say, okay, you're 90% on this habit, you're 75% on this habit, your total productive output of all the habits over the last 14 days is, let's say, 94%. I have a pretty good idea that when I jump on the phone with that person, they're going to be feeling really good about themselves. And I've done this 1,010 times as of this past week. So I've started to really correlate, okay, if someone's in the 90%, they feel really good about themselves. if they're in the lower like 60s, 70s, or even 50s, usually they're kind of down and out. They're struggling. They don't really feel good about themselves. Here's my point. That proves to me that keeping the daily promises that you make to yourself, which is all PPT really is, peak performance tracking, that's all it really is. These are the dozen habits that I want to do daily. And when you have a 94% total productive output over the last 14 days, that means you're doing most of your promises. You're keeping almost all the promises that you've made to yourself. And go figure, when you jump on the phone with me, you're going to be in a great mood, feeling great about yourself. It's almost always the case. And so my point here is, number one, recognizing your blind spot. You have low self-worth and you don't know how to build it. You don't realize, maybe, but you might not realize that all it really takes is when you say you're going to go to the gym, you actually go. When you say you're going to read that book, you actually read it. When you say you're not going to eat that thing, you actually don't. Those little daily disciplines stack into our self-esteem. And self-esteem, incrementally built over time, becomes self-worth. Think of it like building a home. Start with the foundation. Then you put the floor in, or the roof, and then the floor. Again, I don't build homes, but it's the small daily activities that build your home, and then you can sell it for $600,000 or $1.5 million, whatever it is. And it takes longer to build a $1.5 million home than a $600,000 home. And the reason I'm saying that is that if you're not consistent over the long term, you're not going to feel like a $1.5 million home. And my goal on this is to make sure every listener, every viewer of this show is building their self-worth incrementally over time to where they do feel like $1 million. That's the saying. I feel like $1 million today. I want you to feel like $1 million every day because you're building through self-esteem and keeping the promises you make to yourself.
Alan, what's a red flag that somebody can check in with if they're out there that shows them that they have a low level of self-worth? If they don't know it, it's a blind spot, right? What is it? A question they can ask themselves? Can they look at their past? How does that work?
The biggest indicator, I appreciate the question.
Of course.
Biggest indicator, and I want to give my girlfriend credit for this because I didn't realize there was such a huge difference between self-confidence and self-worth. So Emilia was the one who helped me understand the difference because I have very, very high self-confidence, but not necessarily as high of self-worth, although I've worked on it. And the biggest red flag is if you're constantly appeasing other people. If you're constantly going outside of alignment with your core aspirations, your core values, and your core beliefs in order to get love or validation, oh, here's another big red flag. If you're constantly looking at how many likes you have on your posts. I couldn't tell you, and this is actually an analytical Jeffing because I should probably know, but Kevin tracks his social media. I track mine as well. I do mine weekly. He does his daily. We are interested in having a greater impact. So, of course, we're looking at the numbers to make sure it's growing. But I'm not, like, checking my last post to make sure it got likes. I don't really care that much. I mean, of course I do in terms of the impact it's going to have. But if you're, like, refreshing and checking to see if that post did well, you're looking for external validation, you probably have low self-worth.
So Taryn and I showed Alan. Let me get my book. Hold on. Taryn and I went to I think it's the used book superstore yesterday, and I got a bunch of books. This is a nice one, Zig Ziglar, big one.
Ooh, I got that one.
It's a thick one. And this book was $5.79. And while I was there, I was thinking to myself, how many of these books were on somebody's bookshelf, or they were after a conversation they had with a friend, and they said, you know what, I'm in this personal development thing. I'm in this self-improvement thing. I'm going to go grab this book that is, how many pages is this thing?
Can I guess?
Please.
Guess?
Yeah, please.
740.
647.
So
I'm going to go grab this 647-page book, and I'm going to get after it. I'm ready to turn my life around. I'm ready to get into it. Or how many people tell themselves that I'm into fitness, I'm into health, I'm into bettering my body. There's a lot of people out there who are telling themselves stories about themselves that aren't necessarily real. So my second point, you think you're something that you're not. And this was me for sure. In the beginning of my journey, Alan, I bought a bunch of audiobooks and I never finished them. The first book I ever bought was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and I did not finish it the first time. I'm going to take you behind the scenes. I used to play, there's a video game called MLB The Show, Major League Baseball game. I used to play that while I listened to my books because in my mind, I was into self-improvement. I was into personal development, and I really wasn't. So if you're out there right now and you say, I'm a self-improvement junkie. I'm a personal development junkie. I'm a growth junkie. I would say, what proof do you have to back that up? And I'm not saying that in a mean way, but if that's a blind spot and you assume and you believe that you are something and you're not it, you're never going to get the results. And you're always going to wonder why. You're always going to wonder why you're not that. And now it's okay on the opposite end. Alan and I today, we have something we call the client alignment score, where we rate all of our clients on how it helps us with mastery and impact and money and all these things. And we're going through formulas in Excel. And for most of my life, I told myself I am bad at math. I think I'm something that I'm not. I'm terrible at math. And Alan and I were pitching and catching with some things, and that was fun. It was fun for me. But it made me realize that that's also a blind spot for me. You might also have blind spots that are the opposite of this. So yes, maybe you think you're a self-improvement junkie and you're not. Okay, that's fine. But you also might think you're a terrible communicator, and that might not be true either. So make sure you check in with both ends of this. And if you find yourself being the type of human, again, I'm guilty of this, I'm sure Alan probably has been in the past, who goes and says, you know what, I am this type of person, and you go buy a 700-page book, make sure you sit down and read that bad Larry, so that can start to leak into your identity, and then you can get the results of the person who has that identity as well.
I want to take this back to the original story I told about we've all been in the car trying to merge into the right or left lane, and then all of a sudden we go, oh my God, I almost just crashed into that car. They were in my blind spot. A blind spot doesn't allow you to make an effective decision. You're trying to merge into the right lane when it's not safe. The reason why recognizing blind spots, both good and bad, is so that you can have accurate data to make better decisions so that you can be more successful in whatever that means for you. I just want to remind everyone of that. Again, recognizing your blonde spots. Recognizing your blind spots. Number 2, you are mistaking movement for achievement. This is something that a lot of people have been very, very guilty of, me in particular early in my journey. There's this guy at my gym, and more power to him because he's so consistent. Shows up every single night. He's always there. So his consistency is completely on point, but consistency for the sake of consistency without improvement actually doesn't get you anywhere. So again, do not mistake movement for achievement. This guy, he comes there every single night, but he's watching football. He's always yelling at the TV. He's always talking to his buddies. He's not really working out. He's not really that focused on his workout. And he does the same exact regimen over and over and over again. And I'm really focused in the gym, so I'm not just observing him all the time, but I have noticed over time. This is a gym that we started going to since we moved into this new home, and I go basically every night, at least 6 times a week, minimum. And I observe people in between sets, and I'm just like, this dude is doing the same exact thing. And honestly, he's not making that much progress. Of course he's not. He's consistent, and that's awesome. But he's not consistently improving. He's mistaking movement for achievement. Going to the gym and walking around the gym and watching football and talking to your friends isn't going to get you the physique you want. Going to the gym, putting your head down and actually putting in the work and sweating and struggling, that will make a big, big difference. See, movement is I'm going to go to the gym and say I went to the gym and I'm going to take a photo of the gym. Okay? Achievement is actually working out, putting in the sweat equity, putting in the self-discipline, going that extra rep when you don't want to, going that extra 5 minutes when you don't want to. Okay? Do not mistake movement for achievement. There's a big difference between talking about your book, like I do often, and actually writing my book. Writing the book is far harder and far less shiny, but it's absolutely critical because that's where the achievement actually happens.
I think back to, and Alan, I'm sure you had this, there's people who I'd work out with in my past who they'd say, hey, I want to go get a workout in. Awesome. I take my pre-workout. Let me get ready. Let me do my mobility. This is great. I got my music playing. And 10 minutes into the workout, they'd say, all right, what time are we going to be done? It's like, wait, we just got started. We're not even warmed up yet. I just got to the gym. And that would be that sort of energy, that sort of identity. But I also think back to when I was doing my bodybuilding show, two things. Number one, I used to work out with Matt. Shout out to Matt if you're watching this. And we used to have the most brutal workouts together because we were pushing each other, the identity of two bodybuilders. But I used to work out with my coach. And working out with my coach, who is a professional bodybuilder and 5'3", 260 pounds of muscle or whatever he is, was the most brutal experience ever. This person was not there to check the box. This person was there to get results and expected the same from me. And it's very interesting how that intention, that identity, that deeper understanding can really shift the results. And it was brutal. It was brutal for sure. All right. Number 3, it goes very hand in hand with what we were just talking about with Alan's second point. In a lot of podcast Facebook groups, I know I talk about that pretty often, and somebody posted something the other day. They said, why do I have to pay for a landing page to be on Apple and Spotify? Why can't I just host my podcast on YouTube for free? And they got a lot of responses of, well, because you're going to be missing out on millions and millions of people, because a lot of people listen to podcasts, because there's way more YouTube channels than there are podcasts, that not everybody wants to watch it. They want to listen to it. And there was a bunch of answers. But this person was trying to save $9.99 a month. And when I see that, I think one of two things. One, either this person is strapped for cash, nothing but empathy for that. I have been there for a long time. Or number two, this person just isn't all in. And they're not willing to spend $9.99 to try to grow their podcast. My third point, you're not actually all in. There's a lot of people who, they jump on the new thing. Alan and I got asked a lot when Clubhouse came out, hey, are you going to be on Clubhouse? Hey, are you going to do Clubhouse? And we kept saying, no. I checked it out and I said, this isn't for me. I don't want to do this. Because I believe we're on a wave that we're already riding, and I think we're doing it very well. I'm all in on podcasting. I'm all in on the art. I read books. I study speaking. I study audio. I study video. I want to make sure that I'm improving with that thing. There's a lot of people out there who, they start something and they do it for a month and that's it. And they go to the next thing. And again, if you're out there, it's okay. I'm not trying to call you out. I'm trying to raise your awareness to the fact that if this is you, it's something you can shift. The average podcast lasts anywhere between 7 and 21 episodes. And that's because a lot of people aren't all in. I've seen a lot of people come and go when it comes to podcasting. And you can see this on people's social media feeds. They say they're all in on their business, but they stop posting a week after they start posting. And those people just won't win long term unless they come into the understanding that, oh, this is a blind spot for me. I'm jumping from one shiny object to another shiny object to another shiny object. And you have to break that pattern, because if you don't break that pattern, you're not going to win at anything, because you're not going to put the time in. So if you are the type of person who says you're all in, I again would say, what is the proof that backs that up? Are you learning about the thing? Are you taking risks? And again, you don't have to go quit your job and be reckless like I was, but are you taking calculated risks towards the thing that you want, the thing that you say you want? A lot of us talk about things. I would say, what are you actually doing? Talking is one thing, doing is another. Are you backing up your words with actions? That's how you prove you're all in.
Hi, my name's John Laurito, and I just wanted to give a big shout out to Kevin Palmieri. I had reached out to him. He had been referred to me when I had shared with a friend of mine some interest in doing a podcast, and he said, you've got to use Kevin. He's fantastic. He's the best around. He'll get you started and off the ground and soaring high in no time. And take it from somebody who knows nothing about podcasting other than maybe saying a few things. But as far as behind the scenes, the startup, everything, I knew nothing. Kevin was phenomenal in terms of leading me through the whole process, and not just easy to work with, but really, really knows his stuff. A great combination between leading me through all the stuff I had no idea what I was doing, but also really listening to me and understanding what it was I was trying to accomplish and what my vision is. So whether you're looking for somebody to help you and get you started, or somebody as I've done, where I'm putting it entirely in his hands because I've got total trust and confidence in him, and he is a true pro and easy to work with. Any of those ends of the spectrum, you're going to have a lot of success and a lot of fun working with Kevin. Trust me. Thanks.
The third point I have here, I'm going to start with a story. And so when I was a senior in high school, I started dating my second girlfriend. Her name was Alyssa. And I went to college. And I believe it was my sophomore year of college when I was helping her with her math homework. So she was a senior in high school and she was doing her math homework and I was helping her with it. I think it was like pre-calculus. And I remember when I was helping her, she got all frustrated and she said, I hate math. I just hate math. I hate math. And I remember I sat her down and I talked to her about this. And I said, Alyssa, if I could show you how many people in the world who said I hate math, how much they struggle financially, you trust me, you would stop hating math. I wish that I could show everyone a statistical analysis of the people that said I love math and how much wealth they have over their lifetime versus people who said I hate math. There is a very, very strong correlation. I went to a tech school, one of the best tech schools, and there is a very strong correlation between financial abundance and how much someone loves numbers and loves mathematics. There's a very, very strong correlation. So my third point here, this is a blind spot, huge blind spot for many, many, many people. And I understand why. I have empathy. There's not a lot of great math teachers. There's some that are amazing, but I've also heard that sometimes math teachers have trouble explaining different concepts. So I don't want to call out teachers or anything like that, but it's difficult. It's difficult as a math brain to explain these concepts. I was trying to help Kevin with some stuff earlier in the financial spreadsheet, and I was literally like, I don't even know how to explain this. So I get it. I get your frustration. Here's the blind spot. You tell yourself you hate math, but you do not fully understand the downside of that. When I was a little boy, my mom went to a parent-teacher conference with my 7th grade teacher. And he said, what are you doing here? You don't have to be here. Your son's fine. And she said, I need to know, is this gift going to stick? And he said, yes, absolutely, meaning my gift for mathematics. I was told from a very young age that I was amazing at math. And I was, that was true, but I was also told I wasn't good at English. And so that identity leaked into my behavior. And so I avoided English and I went all in on math. Just keep doing what you're good at, keep doing what you're good at, keep doing what you're good at. Now here I am at age 33, realizing the long-term detriment of the fact that I didn't start reading books consistently until I was 26 years old. I wasn't really bad at English. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. I avoided English because I was told I was bad at it. So if you were told you were bad at math, or you were told yourself that you hate math, or you got frustrated with your math teachers or whatever happened, what I'm telling you is this. If you wish for financial abundance, you're going to have a better relationship with numbers. You're going to have a better relationship with finance. You're going to have a better relationship with money and with wealth. That's what our virtual event is on, by the way. So below, it says join us for our next live virtual meetup, February 3rd. It's on creating financial abundance. But this blind spot is huge and it's very, very prevalent. You tell yourself you hate math, but you don't understand the downside. If I told you that financial abundance was connected to you enjoying math, trust me, you'd be more open to it.
I used to say that for sure. I think in my mind, I didn't hate math. I was just bad at it. That was my thought. But if you like money, you like math. What's a good resource?
I don't think you're bad at math at all.
I appreciate that very much. What's a good resource? I remember I asked Dave Meltzer that. I said, if somebody wants to learn math and numbers, where do they go?
It depends on their level. Emilia just bought a book called Basic Mathematics, and her and I have been doing a lot of math together. You got to just start small, but it depends. It depends on where you're at. So some people I'd recommend higher levels. If you want to go, here's a good place. Study probability. Everything in life is statistical probability. So, for example, what is the probability that if you invest in Walmart, you're going to get a good return on your investment? The probability is pretty high, but not as high as if you invest in Amazon. And if you can't calculate those probabilities, okay, what's the probability that Kevin and I have a successful episode on this one? Everything in life is a statistical probability. And so I would start there. I would start with understanding statistics and understanding probability.
I told a story in I think I told a story about sports betting and how I've been doing a little bit of that lately. Again, not with the company money, so take it easy, Jeff.
Can you explain that real quick, just for people?
Sure,
the 50-yard line thing?
Yeah. So Taryn and I yesterday, she's like, hey, I want to do some sports betting with you. And I was like, first of all, am I being tricked here? What's going on here? But we sat down on the couch and I tried to explain it to her. I said, so you have to understand, when there's a kickoff and the kickoff lands in the end zone, that team starts at the 25-yard line. There is a bet that you can make that team will cross the 50-yard line. More often than not, that bet will be a winner. It just happens more often than not. So I think if you bet 100% of the time, you'd probably win 60% of the time. So I turned $50 into $350 over the course of a couple of weeks. Why? Because I'm only thinking of probability. The probability of this team who's not good scoring a touchdown here is fairly low. Let me bet that. So it really is. It's all it is numbers. Thinking, what are the odds that this happens? Do I like the odds? Yes. Okay, I'll bet. If not, I'm going to let it go. And I've won way more than I've lost. And it's not because I'm good at it and I know more about football. I'm just playing the odds. So,
quick disclaimer before you go, Kev, real quick. Quick disclaimer. I just want to say that I have nothing against any math teachers out there. I just know math is really difficult to teach. And so that's really all I meant by that. I just want to make sure I'm clear about that because I've had some unbelievable math teachers and I felt really bad for saying that.
I had some really good math teachers too. I feel bad that I didn't try to learn more. You know, it must be really hard trying to teach something where a bunch of people might think. I know we have a client who's a dentist or orthodontist, and I know it's hard for orthodontists because people say they hate the dentist. Like imagine that being your job and people say they hate it. All right, number 4. So Tara and I, recently, in our apartment, the thermostat was broken, and it only went up to 72. And it's been cold in New Hampshire, so I said, yeah, I'll call. And a week went by and I didn't call. And then another couple days went by and I didn't call. And another couple days went by and I didn't call. And Taryn's always cold, and I'm usually running hot because I'm locked in the office and all the heat stays in here. We got lights, the camera, action. It's very warm in here. And we were on the porch bringing in the furniture because it was going to snow. We were bringing in the outside furniture. And she asked me, she said, hey, did you ever call about that? And I said, no, I didn't. I will though. And I could tell she got frustrated. And then later that night we had a conversation. She said, honestly, I got to be honest with you. I feel like I'm resenting you a little bit because you say you're going to do stuff and you haven't done it. And we had a wonderful conversation. We cried it out, reconnected. It was amazing. My 4th point, you're at least 50% of the problems in your relationships. Now, again, this can be a hard one, but I felt a little disconnected to Taryn throughout the course of that week or maybe the previous week. And the reason isn't necessarily that I said anything wrong. It's because she was frustrated with some of my actions and vice versa. That happens. I know it's happened with Alan and I. When Alan was late to the studio, I'd get super frustrated and I'd hold it in. Now, my problem is I wouldn't communicate that to Alan, and we wouldn't be able to drive to 5. So I was 50% at fault for not communicating my feelings. Taryn and I had a wonderful conversation. We both admitted our truth, and we got closer because of that. But if you're not taking action on the things that you say you're going to take actions on, maybe you're causing some resentment. If you're not expressing your truth based on the resentment that you're feeling, then you're causing some sort of issues in your relationship as well. And I just think it's an important understanding to realize that nobody has mastered relationships. We're always focused on growth. We're focused on getting better and better and better and better. But no matter which end you're on, there's always room for improvement. And there's a very, very high likelihood that you're doing something right now in your relationship that will get, I don't want to say called out, but will get highlighted, and it will be a wonderful room or a wonderful opportunity for growth. And I believe it's like that at all times. Alan and I have that. Tara and I have that. Alan and Amelia have that. Alan and the team have that. I have that with the team. I have that with my family. And just, I think it's an important understanding to realize that relationship dynamics are always all over the place, and there's a good opportunity for you to continue growing, and that will improve your relationships because it's not always your fault, but sometimes it's your doing, and that's okay. That's okay. It's empowering.
Taking responsibility in that arena is nothing short of empowering. Taking responsibility, period, is very, very empowering. Because remember, if it's everyone else's fault, there's nothing you can do about it. Recognizing your blind spots, the next one. So when 2021 ended, I have been doing this new homework assignment with all of my clients. And for the clients who haven't spoken to me yet since 2022, they know this is coming now. I had them reflect on 2021, especially the ones that have been working with me for a really long time. And I said, okay, 2021, true or false, was the most successful, fulfilled year that you've ever had. You grew more in 2021 than you ever have before, true or false? They said true. Awesome. Okay, I want you to explicitly go think about this. I want you to explicitly communicate to me what made the biggest difference. What was it that you did differently, thought differently? What was it that made the difference? Explicitly communicate to me what made the difference. Okay? Come back, do that. Homework assignment. Number 4 is this. When you do get results, you don't know what made the biggest difference, so you can't double down on it. If Kevin and I had a huge spike in listens and we had no clue how that happened, guess what? We can't replicate. So just like my clients, to go reflect on 2021, one of your blind spots might be you don't know what made you successful. That's one thing that I've found very fascinating with some of my more successful clients. Some of my clients that are multi-million-dollar business owners, sometimes they don't even know how they created the success, or at least they've lost sight of it. They have an idea, but they don't know what made the biggest difference, so they can't necessarily double down on it. And so that's the blind spot. Do you actually know what made you successful? More importantly, do you know what's making you unsuccessful? Another example. If you and your intimate partner are struggling, are you able to identify why? In Relationship Talks coaching, a lot of times that's what Emilia and I are doing. We're just helping a bird's eye perspective. Between Emilia and myself, we're adding our awareness and we're saying, oh, this is actually the root issue. You guys are misaligned on this one core value or this one core aspiration, or this is the cycle that's happening. Typically, there's a cycle. It's like, okay, well, when you get frustrated, you end up shelling up and pushing it down, and then that makes your partner actually feel anxious and uncertain, and then they end up puffer fishing, and it creates this vicious cycle where the turtle shell and the puffer fish is happening. So you have to understand what's causing the issue, but you also have to understand what's causing the success. So if you had a bunch of success in a certain arena, but you have no clue why or no clue how, you're not able to double down on it. That's the 4th blind spot. When you do get results, you don't know what made the biggest difference, so you can't double down on it.
Last one for me. I'll hammer it quick, so Alan, you can hammer your last one. You will
brother.
care far less about other people understanding you when you start to understand yourself at a deep level. So Taryn was out for dinner with friends, or I think her brother, earlier this week, and I finished up work, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go get Pressed Cafe. Pressed Cafe is an all-day breakfast spot, Alan. Oh, my goodness, you'd love it. And they have all sorts of paninis and salads and bowls and mac and cheese, and I get a short rib panini with pickles and cheese. Comes with a side of hash browns and a side salad. And I had my pajamas on, and I thought to myself, I'm not putting jeans on because it has a drive-through. So I walked out to my car. We live in an apartment complex. I walked out to my car in my pajamas and socks and sandals. And that's something that, if I think back to a couple of years ago, that's something I would never do because I'd be thinking, well, what if somebody sees me? What are they going to think? And Alan and I are very different when we go through airports. Alan has his hair done. He's always dressed very nicely. I look like I do right now. And it's just like, well, I would just want to be comfortable. I want to be comfortable. So my point with this is, I don't really care if anybody sees me because I am way more focused on my reality, my character, my results, my life than I am what other people think of it. Now, it wasn't always that way for the vast majority of this journey, particularly in the very beginning. It was quite the opposite. But as I've leaned into my self-worth, as we've started to get results, as I've come into my own, I don't really care. What's the worst that can happen? Somebody's going to say, hey, nice sandals. They are. They're Under Armour. They're very nice, and they're very comfortable, and my pajama game is the strongest. So if you want to talk about my pajamas, I have my taco pajamas on right now. Sarah commented on those last time I posted them. Last thing. When we went to Colorado, one of the exercises was call somebody close to you and ask them for feedback on a blind spot. And I called my buddy Matt, and he said, oh, it's hard because I feel like you're very self-aware, but if I had to come up with something, I would say you say you care less about people's thoughts about you than you actually do. You say that you don't care what people think, but I think you do at a deep level. And I said, that's fair. That's a fair assessment. Looking back on that, I think that was an old Kevin, and it's not as much a new Kevin. I don't think I have to put on a show for people because I know the behind the scenes, the behind the curtain is what it is, and I'm very happy and proud of that. So that's something I've been working on for a long time. Same for you. You will care far less about people's assumptions about you when you're actually happy about your truth. Very empowering one. It takes time for sure, but if that's a blind spot for you and you're thinking to yourself, oh, I'll always care about what people think and I'll always fear judgment, when you stop fearing judgment about yourself, when you're no longer afraid people are going to highlight your biggest insecurity, it becomes very freeing.
Fifth and last point, your self-worth and self-confidence are far more tied to perception than reality. We talked earlier about comparison. And I know some people on social media that appear to be the most successful and fulfilled people you could possibly imagine, who quite frankly are unhappy and absolutely broke. And then there's some people who on social media you wouldn't even know are wealthy, and they have mansions on mountains. You cannot look at social media, and we say this a lot, so I want to really try to go deeper. Your subconscious mind is comparing, even if consciously you know it's not real. Your subconscious mind, when you're watching a movie, it doesn't know there's a green screen. If it does, it's a bad movie. It's supposed to simulate reality. And so I think my point here is, even if you're conscious about this, even if you're like, well, no, I know that relationship isn't as happy and as perfect as it looks, or I know that person isn't as unbelievably wealthy, even though they seem to never really have to work that hard and they can spend all day on the beach. It's not real. And even though you know that it's not real, it's important to understand what it's doing to your subconscious mind. There's a lot of studies about this. And I'll give you another example. I remember in one of my past relationships, my girlfriend would watch The Bachelorette. And for everyone out there who watches The Bachelorette, I'm not trying to be mean here. No one on their first date goes on a hot air balloon in Italy overlooking Venice.
Maybe Alessandro.
Yeah.
Shout out to Alessandro in Italy.
That's not real. And even though you know that it's not real, I've never told this story publicly, I don't think. I got cast for a show called Love Island. And fortunately, I didn't end up going.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. But I'm telling you right now that TV show claims to be a reality TV show. And this isn't me calling them out, because this is how all reality TV shows work. They were already trying to get me behind the scenes to have more drama in my life than I actually do. They wanted me to fake drama with my ex to make the show more dramatic. Here's my point. Whether it's Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat or YouTube or even our Instagrams or Bachelorette or reality TV or movies with green screens, it's all not real. It's not real life. None of it is real life. It's a very small snapshot of an individual's life, and even that isn't a real snapshot. It's a staged snapshot. I say that because I want you to fight back. I want you to understand your blind spot. Your self-worth and self-confidence is more tied to perception than reality. I want you to tie your self-worth and self-confidence to reality. Okay? If you're not happy with your physique, that's okay. That's okay. Work on it. But don't feel bad about it because of someone else's Instagram photo that I guarantee you is one of 100 photos that was also doctored. So just try to live in your real life. I say this every week on book club, like live in the real world. The digital world can really mess with our heads, and it's really important to understand that people are not as high in confidence as you think. People are not as wealthy as you think. People are not as successful as you think. People are not as fulfilled in their relationships as you think. Everyone is struggling. It is not just you. Some people are just a little better at it, or better at making it seem like they're not struggling. There's no one out there who wakes up every single day and is totally happy and totally confident and loves themselves. It's not real, and it's very important. The only thing that is real is slow, methodical, incremental, small improvements day to day, and that's what this entire podcast is built around.
Taryn and I were watching Chopped, shout out to Chopped, and there was a commercial it was some reality show, and I said, isn't it wild that there's cameras following them around all the time, and they have to set up for the shots, and they have to set up every location they go, and they're in the car with them. It's the furthest thing from reality in the world.